like the tribal music.
You know how I'm not a pro at this? I got surprised when my mic went muted. I was like, whoa, what happened?
Well, welcome to another episode of Tribe of Visionaries. I'm your host, Jason Merritt, along with my co-hosts, Paul Birmingham and Kelly Brodzinski. And we have some very special guests this evening. We have Harris Jones and Paul Santana from Charleston, South Carolina. Paul and Harris have recently ventured into co-living and house hacking on a new property that they just bought. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing fairly well. We just spent the past 2 to 3 days moving in, so this might look pretty nice behind us, but the rest of the house is a little shambles.
Nice. Yeah, so for those that are just tuning in, Paul and Harris hosted us in our real estate meetup this past weekend at their new property, and we got to get eyes on their new renovation. Looks awesome. What is it, total of 5 bedrooms? Is that what it was total?
Yes, 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms.
Yeah, it started at 3-1, and then the renovation was we added 2 bathrooms and added 2 doors as well. So that way we can have 3 separate living areas with each independent entrance and bathroom.
Oh, nice. So do you guys do investing full time, or do you have other jobs that you do on the regular?
Yes, this is something totally secondary to both of our jobs. By day, I'm a software engineer for a government contractor, and this is literally my first real estate venture. And
I am the director of operations for Rehab Wallet. We lend money to real estate investors, typically short-term fix and flip bridge loans.
Nice. And so how did you use Rehab Wallet for this particular property, or?
We did not actually. This was an interesting, something that people don't typically hear about too often, but Paul found out about the 203K conventional renovation loan, so that's the route we went.
yeah, it was a big credit to our realtor, Jake. He informed me about that. He's like, hey, if you want to do a renovation, this is it's not very rare, it's rarely used, but this way you can buy a house and renovate it, add bathrooms and entrances and any other things you want to do, all in one loan. Don't have to refinance. Still pretty low down payment, 3.5% down, and it's probably a great way to go. There's a lot of twists and turns. Or go ahead.
I'm sorry, is this for investors, or is this more of a primary residence type of loan? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. It is for anybody. If you want to do a primary residence. So usually if you're doing an investment, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 20-25% down. But as your primary residence, you can take advantage of low down payment owner-occupied loans. So anywhere from 3.5 to 5% down. There's the FHA version is 203K, and that's 3.5% down. And then there's the 5% down, which is what I did for conventional renovation loan. And again, the nice thing is you get money to buy the house and money to renovate all in one loan. No need to refinance in between.
Yeah, so it's a very low barrier to entry versus you're going to at least pay 10% down, 13, 14% maybe for hard money. So we just went the 203K route.
Yeah, it sounds smart. And so the new property is 3 bedrooms and living room and bathroom on the inside, kitchen, and then you guys have 2 separate apartments. They're almost like each one's like a studio unit with its own bathroom, and they actually have their own entrance as well. So you guys went into this with the intention of house hacking. Could you guys explain a little bit more about like what house hacking is for people that are unaware of like how they can make this work?
House hacking, I think credit to Bigger Pockets, Brandon Turner is the person that created it. And basically it's the idea that you buy a house, you live in part of it, and then rent out the other parts. And there's many different ways to do it. You can buy a multifamily, which is what a lot of people do. Buy a duplex, you live on one side with your family, and then rent out the other side. Or you can do things like we're doing, is renting out rooms in your house. Or you can do things like a lot of people have a backyard ADU, accessory dwelling unit, also called a mother-in-law suite or a granny suite, whatever you want. But something completely detached in your backyard, you rent that out, and then you're living in the house separately. Or maybe you live in the ADU and then rent out your house. If you want to go crazy, there's also other ways you could. I'm reading the House Hacking Strategy Guide, good book right here, and one advanced strategy is this one guy bought a house, and then he bought a trailer or an RV. He lived in the RV and he rented out the house. So he was making tons of money. And the reason why you do this then is, of course, sharing all the expenses, sharing the mortgage, the utilities, all that kind of stuff. It allows you to live very cheaply, maybe even for free, maybe even make a profit. Pretty cool. And then you build equity with your house over time.
So how long are you, I know you're going to be living in the house temporarily with the people. How long do you plan on staying before you kind of relocate and add this property to your portfolio and maybe do it again?
As a primary, we do intend to live in it for at least a year, but our goal is to live in it for a year, buy another one, do it again, buy another one, do it again, until we build a portfolio of properties. I currently have a primary as well, which we will be, now that we've moved in here, we'll be turning that one into true co-living. Since we're not living there, it will be house hacking, it will be co-living.
So when you do move out, would you hire somebody to come in and kind of be the manager of that home?
No, we're going to self-manage for now. Interestingly enough, Paul really loves vetting people. It's his superpower, and most people hate doing that job. They hate managing people, but he absolutely loves it. And we are very much, I'd consider us community builders. So we love hosting people in our home. We host a lot of meetup groups as well, meetup.com. So we just really love the element of community. So we have absolutely no problem self-managing those properties.
Yeah.
So somebody would move, when y'all moved out, somebody would move into the space that y'all are in now.
Yeah.
And then how do you kind of keep the balance in the house between all the different people?
Yeah. So this is going to be the first time that we're doing this, and it'll be interesting to see how we coexist with people that are literally complete strangers that we never met before. So you sign a lease and hope for the best. But I think that we're both friendly people and easy to get along with, and we'll be able to get along with people pretty well. And if not, like with anything, real estate, business, starting a family, anything, there's always going to be challenges that come up, and you just have to deal with it. So maybe somebody moves in and they do something we don't like, or we just don't work well together. Then we part ways and then figure out for the future, okay, well, don't rent to somebody who has 75 soccer balls, whatever it is.
Right, yeah. Got you.
But we'll figure it out. But to answer your question, after about a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that, we're taking the three inside bedrooms, as Jason mentioned. We're taking those 3 bedrooms. So after a year, we'll rent those out and replace ourselves. And hopefully, good idea from Harris is like, the way that we present ourselves and find people, hopefully that attracts a certain type of person. So then when we replace ourselves, then that type of person will also be respectful and friendly and get along with the other 2 people after we leave as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good opportunity for some type of creation building with like minds, possibly. Like you said, like the community aspect. I think that's really cool. As a concept that, I mean, it's not something that I necessarily think about that often. So that's pretty cool to have the community aspect.
Yeah, we do follow a few people who are already actively doing a lot of co-living homes, and they sometimes will even host events for the members in their community. So we may eventually do that as well. Right now, we're just kind of putting our toes in and seeing how we can build a cohesive house with just 2 people, and then get to the point where we're doing that with 5, 10, 20 people.
This is shout out to, I don't know if anybody heard of Sam Wiegert. He did a podcast, a Bigger Pockets episode years ago that blew up. And Sam Wiegert is a person that I think right now has like 175 rooms that he owns and he rents them all by the room. He also has a property management company where he does rent by the room property management for other people, and he like 600 rooms for other people. And one of the things he does is he has a house manager for each one of his houses that like watches over the house and stuff like that. And then every quarter he hosts a party where he invites all his house managers together and, you know, kind of just socialize, get to know each other, all that kind of stuff. So I can envision that we might do something like that.
Yeah, and that would be good to share stories.
Yeah, exactly, right? So throw a house hacking major.
Yeah, we're also looking. We had a few people in other groups ask us, "Are you doing coin operated laundry or card operated laundry?" And we understand the benefit of that, but for right now, we really want it to feel people to feel like they're at home, right? We want that community aspect. So we're not looking to get every dollar that we can out of people. We just want them to feel comfortable and for us to feel comfortable and for it to be a cohesive home.
Yeah, it's more about harmony right now than trying to make a lot of money or something.
Yeah, Paul, I remember when I looked over some of the questions that you had for your application, I was thinking to myself, there is absolutely no chance I would want to live in this place. But then I thought, hey, this isn't for me, right? This is for a certain type of person. And just like it lends to the, you wouldn't want coin operated or card operated laundry for that community. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about, you know, what your screening process was? Paul, I know that's one of your superpowers. Just kind of talk a little about that, maybe some of the challenges you've run into so far.
Yeah, as an engineer, I tend to like research things to death, and like asking you guys, I ask everybody I know, get different opinions on everything. And one of the things that stuck out in my mind, shout out to Sean Cleary, he said what he does is he has a Google Forms that he puts in his ad, and he says, hey, if you would like to rent a room or rent a place, message me and ask me for the pre-application form. And if somebody messages and doesn't ask for the pre-application form, well, right off the bat, you know, they didn't read anything. They didn't read your ad, right? They just said like, hey, is this is this still available? Right? So that's a bad sign right there. So the other thing is once they fill out that application with whatever questions you want, whatever is important to you, you know, like, are you a football fan or do you like UFC or whatever it is, right? If they fill out the application, that's a pretty good sign. That means they actually took the time to go through that, answer your questions. So for me, we didn't do anything too crazy. I think I might have taken a few of those questions off. That probably were a little too much. But it's more like, hey, what time do you wake up, go to sleep? Where do you work? Why are you moving? That's a pretty good one. I forget where I heard it, but if somebody is very they need to move ASAP, like immediately, like they're desperate, it doesn't really matter the reason. It's probably a bad reason. But if somebody's moving because they got a new job or they're just moving to Charleston, you know, whatever, then it's probably good. I forget a few other questions I think I asked, like general income range, general credit range before the actual credit score. So back to the other advice was you do the form, then you do credit check, background check, eviction history check, something like that. And if they go through all of that and you like their questions and then you meet them in person, phone call, and then show them the house, it's probably going to be a pretty good fit for the most part. There's always things that may surprise you over time, but that's kind of the main flow.
I'm giggling because I know if Paul could, he would ask them like, do you floss? If so, how often do you floss? Like,
yeah.
And what kind of books have you read? Are they self-development books? What kind of books are these? So
I did initially. So this is kind of funny. A few months before the house was ready, I decided to do research on just like putting ads out there, getting people to respond, and just so one of the questions I asked was, "Do you floss?" Everybody said yes.
Sense of humor.
No, was that?
For your sense of humor.
Yeah. Everyone said yes. So I was like, all right, this is a useless question because everyone's lying. That was the other question, Paul. I think it was how long is it acceptable to leave dirty dishes in the sink?
Oh.
that was the question. That was the question where I was like, not my vibe, not my place.
I took that off because I was like, that might send the wrong impression. But I think otherwise, you can probably tell from everything else that, you know, we're trying to be clean and respectful and quiet, stuff like that. So
That's
I like
funny
that
you
problem.
say that. That is one of my number one requirements for living with someone is no dishes in the sink.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You have to find that balance though. You obviously want to know these types of things, but if you put too many questions on there, as Paul said, you're not going to fill it out. They're going to look at that and they're like, these people are crazy because they want to know all these things about me.
Yeah.
So you have to find that balance of asking the
For the
right
record, I
questions.
wasn't saying you should have dirty dishes in the sink. I was
Yeah.
just saying that it might be a little bit intrusive if they're being like, well, how, do you floss? How much? Anyways, you get it.
Yeah.
Do you ever get to the point? Do you ever get to the point where you ask those questions? Because for me, that would kind of be, like I said, it's like number one for me is the kitchen cleanliness in a group living situation. So do you ever get to that point where you ask those type of questions?
I kind of stepped off the gas a little bit on that because I was like, at the first part, since we're doing this brand new, we're trying to get people for the first time. I don't want to filter too much. Once we do have people with us and things are stabilized and we're figuring out how to coexist, and then somebody says, hey, I'm moving out in 30 days, well, then we have a little bit more time and we can be a little bit more relaxed to find like the perfect person. Not necessarily the perfect person, but be a little bit more stringent on exactly what we're looking for.
That actually brings up a really good question. Do you already have like a house guidelines, house rules, expectations kind of already written up for people when they move in?
Yeah, this is actually something I did yesterday. We are talking to a few people that are potentially moving in the next few weeks, which is kind of cool. So I was faced with the idea of, I have to make a lease. Okay, so and then part of that is creating rules. So I forget all the rules that we had. There's a lot. One of them was like, do you agree to have quiet hours after 11 p.m. and before 7 a.m.? Something like that.
Yeah, so most of our rules are things like limits to guests, overnight guests, not leaving personal items in the common areas, the quiet hours or something.
This is going to be a controversial one. It's going to be a controversial one. I said, the tenant will agree to not bring any firearms into the home. So South Carolina, that might be a little controversial, but that's right. Yeah.
It talks about drugs, use of drugs, use of cigarettes or cannabis or whatever people make smoking now.
Yeah.
But we're also very specific about things that we know we like. For example, we don't have a TV, so we obviously don't care if our tenants watch TV in their own room, but we prefer not to have a TV in the living room. It also is a cause for conflict if you have a TV in the living room and then everybody wants to gather there and person A wants to watch this and person B wants to watch something else, or person C is sick of everybody watching TV and just wants them to turn it off. So we're just like, no television in the living room. You can sit and talk in the common areas or eat, but if you want to watch television or stream something, go in your room and you can watch it there. So we're very specific about our rules when it comes to things like that.
We didn't necessarily make a rule about TV, but this is a rule. I forget where I heard. David Edwards, I think. He's another guy who's doing this on a pretty big scale in Houston. I think he has 50 or 60 rooms, something like that. And one of the things he does is he says, make sure in your living rooms have chairs and not couches where people can sleep. Don't have couches where people can sleep. So one of the rules that I put in the lease was you will agree that you will never sleep on the couch. It's pretty short, so I don't think you'll be very uncomfortable. And you'll never allow a guest to sleep on the couch. So that way you don't come home and like somebody random to sleep on the couch. I think that's just weird.
Yeah.
That's
So
smart.
you had mentioned, in 30 days, if it doesn't work out, then you could find somebody else to take their place. Is there a time limit on their lease? Is it not a traditional year lease, or how does that work?
For now, we decided to do a month to month, and it just worked out. A few of the people that we're talking right now, one guy is moving to Charleston, and he just wants to get a lay of the land. So he says, "Hey, would it be okay if I just stayed a month?" So I was like, well, okay. So it just kind of worked out that way. If he wants to stay longer, then of course stay longer. But yeah, I don't want to mandate a year lease yet, because one of the other things that we're finding as we talk to people is a lot of people need something short term, whether it's a month because they're coming here, or there was another guy who said he was coming, he's starting school, and he wants to get a place with his buddies. So he just needs a place for a little bit while they look for something, and then he's gonna get something else.
So there's really a niche for that. If you obviously have to work that into your numbers where you're charging more for the shorter term, but if it works, it works. And as I said, Paul's okay with vetting and talking to tenants a lot, so he's fine with that. If you don't enjoy doing that, you'd probably want to look for somebody more long term for sure.
I think I'm okay with that, getting somebody shorter term, because it allows you to learn how to coexist with new people, and then they leave. And then you replace them with somebody else, and then take those learnings and say, hey, this worked well, this didn't work well, let's modify this and that.
We obviously haven't experienced this yet either, but I'm assuming the reality is people get comfortable in a spot and then they don't want to leave.
Mhm.
So my guess is if somebody moves in and does a month term, they're not going to want to pack up all their stuff and move somewhere else. So they're probably just going to renew and just keep that month to month going. Would be
So are you guys providing furnished bedrooms or anything like that, or?
We originally were going to have them empty and kind of treat it like an apartment. It's your room. You put whatever you want to in there. And a lot of people that we follow do that as well, because people take better care of their own stuff, obviously. And then you don't have to worry about them ruining your things. However, we found that a lot more people, at least in Charleston, were wanting furnished rooms. So we kept trying to keep them empty and kept working that route, and it just didn't work out for us. So we ended up furnishing the rooms, and we ordered just a bed frame, a mattress. We have a nightstand in each room and a place for them to store their clothes. And if they want to put a desk in there or something else, they can. We did also buy bed sheets and stuff, but obviously probably get the new people as they start to rotate, get them to buy their own sheets. We just furnished that for the first one. So,
did you guys notice? Obviously, you probably adjusted your advertising with that. Did you guys see a big uptick in your people calling in, or probably not calling in, but people reaching out to you on social media and other platforms?
I would say there were two things that were crucial in actually getting a lot of traction. It was the furnishing and actually showing pictures of it being furnished. And even if it's not the right furniture, like we didn't have the bed frame or the mattress yet because we had ordered it. So we just put chairs and staged it and made it look cute. And people were more apt to reach out to you because they're like, oh, this is kind of cute. You know, it's just like listing a house on the market. If it's empty, people aren't as interested. So it doesn't matter if it's a bed, just put something in it and take pictures of it. The second thing, Paul got a hint of this. You want to tell him what that week was?
This is interesting. If you post something on Facebook Marketplace, for example, I was trying to go for about $1,200 a month, and very little interest at that amount. But I tried changing it to instead a weekly rate. I think it was by your suggestion. I think it was one of your guys' suggestions. $300 a week, and immediately that blew up like crazy. Blew up like people. I think I got maybe 1,200 people clicking on the ad in the first 24 hours. It was insane. Yeah. But the interesting thing is, like, $1,200 a month versus $300 a week is the exact same thing.
No, it's actually cheaper. It's actually cheaper. $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
Well,
in a 5-week month.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, but a lot of people reached out way more for that, and it was interesting. A lot of people did ask, "Oh, well, so how much is it per month?" And I said, "It was $1,200 a month." Okay. So a lot of people reached out, and it's interesting. You never really know what's going on in the head of the person that's looking. Yeah, you never really know what's going on, but just learning things like that. Good pictures for sure. posting an ad exactly what they want. People want to know the price immediately. However, I will say that the people who we've been talking to more seriously were not on Facebook.
Yeah.
It was mostly roomies.com, and then letscolife.com. Those are good sites. Furnish Finder, I'm on there, and Furnish Finder is the one where it's all medical professionals, traveling nurses, and stuff like that. For whatever, you do have to pay, by the way. So to list your house, you have to pay $150 a year. And so I listed my house on there, and for whatever reason, like, you message people and just very little response. So I don't know what happened there, but very little response on Furnish Finder, sadly. But I'm glad I tried it.
So you think you're getting better quality leads through the alternative sites versus Facebook?
Oh yeah. I'm not entirely sure why. I think part of it is people are on Facebook to see what their friends are doing, see what their family are doing, and then they just randomly see, like, oh, there's a place for rent. Let me just see if that's available. So they click the button that says, hey, is this still available? And you say yes, and you respond to some stuff. You never hear back. Like, well, all right, great. Thank you for wasting my time. Great. Whereas if somebody's on roomies.com, they create an account on that site specifically because they want to find a house to live in. So,
have you had any very unique questions or anything that people have inquired about that just kind of was very different or unique to you that you hadn't really thought about?
Good question. I have to think about that. Let me think about that. You have something?
I don't remember any specific unique questions, but Paul does most of the vetting, obviously, because he really enjoys it. Do you think of one?
Kind of, yeah. We were talking to this one person, and I think we talked to them on the phone. And it was a gentleman that was trying to find a place for one of his employees, which was odd. Why did that person call? So he was trying to find a place for an employee that was staying in a hotel, very expensive every day. And the employee was there with them in the car on speakerphone. And it seemed like it was okay. Like, yeah, sure, this could work. Let's set up a time to do an in-person showing. And then at the very, very end of the phone call, he said, oh, and it's okay if his pregnant wife comes too. I was like, wait, what? So I was like, boy, that's probably not going to work. So that was fun.
Yeah, we do only do one person per room. So one person per room, that's it. We don't prefer pets, but Paul noticed over and over and over again, obviously people are going to ask about their pet, or they'll like throw it in there at the very end of their message. They seem like a great, perfect tenant for us. And then at the bottom, it's like, oh, I also have this really well-behaved dog. And Paul finally said, you know what? I'm just going to post it with pets available, but it's going to be a really high upcharge. And most people haven't asked about it, right?
Yeah. This is shout out to Tyler and Priscilla from our sub 2 group. They gave us that tip of instead of saying no pets, blah blah blah, just say yes, you can have a pet, but there's a pet deposit and then also an additional monthly fee. And then that way people can decide whether they want to or not. I specifically say small pets, just to be clear, because it is a 1-bedroom. You probably don't want a pit bull or a 60-pound dog in there, something like that. So small name. Yeah, exactly. So
it might as well be 2 people at that point. Now, going on Airbnb at all now that you do have furnished?
So Airbnb is interesting. I am not entirely sure. Maybe you can help me with this. The property tax 4% online application specifically says you must contact the assessor's office if you're going to list your house on Airbnb or VRBO or anything like that. So to me, I kind of read that as like I shouldn't be doing that. I'm not entirely sure. I think we were talking to someone yesterday or a couple of days ago where they were saying, well, you just have to get a permit, but I haven't done that specifically just because I don't want anything bad to happen with Charleston County.
No, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, to answer that question would be a whole show in its own. However, there is a ton of different overlays in the Charleston market. Tapping back to somebody that you had talked to earlier and brought up, Sean Cleary, he has an entire 40-minute plus YouTube video talking about all the breakdowns of all the different requirements for the different areas here in the Charleston market. So yeah, if you're interested in that, I'd be more than happy to help you with it. But that video kind of lays everything out, and it's current as of about 12 months ago. So not a whole lot of changes there.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't done it yet. So theoretically, I would, to get out of the short-term rental, I think you have to have 1 month minimum. So that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, you can actually do that on Airbnb where you require a minimum of 30 days, right? Because not to go too far into it, but there's a lot of areas that don't allow short-term rentals, aka 29 days or less stays. And Airbnb is set up to where you can make the minimum stay length whatever you want. You make that 30 days. You require your own lease like you already have, and then you just go through and do that. One of the big benefits is, of course, Airbnb is one of the most premier places for people to look for rooms for rent. So you might get a lot more exposure there as well.
Okay.
A lot of your nurses look there as well, not just Furnish Finder.
The other thing I wonder though is if you list on Airbnb and VRBO, it might be a little bit more expectation of like a luxury stay type of thing, rather than. So that I kind of worry about that. People that are like,
yeah,
what's
I'll
that?
share some of my Airbnbs with you later to show you what a non-luxury stay looks like. Just comfortable and clean, right? So we talked a little bit about having great photos. You want to have professional photos, right? You talked about you don't necessarily need the exact furniture in there, although it's always best to present the room in the way they're going to get it. If you don't have everything yet, you can do things like virtual staging, or like you said, you just put some nice cute chairs in there, a couple plants, right? People love plants. Yeah, you can do that. And we get hung up on the things. I know I do, at least. I get hung up on the things. Hey, what would I want when I stay in an Airbnb? That's not what everybody's looking for, right? The people who are looking to rent your room, they're not having the same criteria as you when you're going on vacation. So, but just one thing, Vrbo is the complete house. So it has to be the entirety of the house with no shared. So you couldn't go on Vrbo, but Airbnb 100% you could put on that, and booking.com if you wanted. Although I don't personally do booking.com, there's just a whole lot of extra layers of scams and things that happen on that platform that just make it a little bit more cumbersome than what I'm willing.
They're very expensive too. Their commissions are very high compared to Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
We probably would be open to doing that here where we're actually living, so that we could go in and manage it and clean it instead of having to pay property management to go in and clean where people are renting rooms at a different location. So we'd be open to that. We just haven't ventured down that path yet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I have a question about, do you require your tenants or your roomies to have insurance for the house, or is that a group thing where they pay if they mess anything up, or how does that work?
For the first ones, I'm not going to require it, but we're using a website, Inago, for property software, all that kind of stuff. But and there is a check mark to say you must require it for the people. And for right now, I'm going to make it optional. But in the future, probably yeah.
It's good when you guys aren't necessarily there, and if somebody's stuff gets stolen or damaged. Rental insurance is so cheap. I mean, it's like 10 to 12, 14 bucks a month, something like that. So it's a good thing, especially if there's ever damage from a flood or a fire or anything like that. They can cover their stuff. We our long-term property management company, we require tenants to have it now.
I'm wondering, question for you. Would you only do that for long term? If it's more short term, would you just say, I'm not going to force them to get renter's insurance?
Well, I don't think it's a very extensive policy or anything. So it's pretty. I know we use Buildium, and I have a feeling it goes through Buildium. Like Buildium's already got something integrated in there, so it's a simple click of a button. The tenant acknowledges it, kind of deal, and when it goes through their system. My wife would probably be a better person to ask that to. She's the one that handles the long-term management. But yeah, I mean, it's just extra peace of mind in case something ever happens. You're not having to, get into a little scarble with anybody regarding, oh, you're responsible for this, you're not responsible for it. So
You also
Just
got
helps them sleep better at night too.
think about the benefit of the tenant too, right? So just for example, I have some friends, they live down in John's Island, and the apartment that they moved into was first floor. The landlord had said it never flooded before. However, it's now flooded 5 times since they moved in like 8 months ago. Problem being, nothing, like the property is covered by flood insurance. Nothing covered their personal belongings. So everything that was ruined that first couple times it flooded, and they didn't know, hey, we have to move everything up out of the way, so it's like 6 inches off the ground at least. None of that was covered by anyone's insurance because they didn't have renter's insurance in place that would have that cover that kind of loss. So just having that conversation with your tenant saying, hey, look, my property insurance covers these specific things. However, in the event that, you know, you go on vacation and the duct ends up getting blocked or whatever, and your room molds and all your stuff gets destroyed by mold, you're not covered unless you have a policy that covers your personal belongings, because mine doesn't cover your personal belongings. Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking from the perspective of us having it furnished ourselves, if that's even necessary. I mean, because it's our stuff. So, and also there's also the concern with how does that affect our insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Because we, like when we first started getting insurance, especially as a primary residence,
Mm-hmm.
there's only so many people that they allow you to rent out to. So we, obviously you could be dishonest and not tell them, but we were. So we told them we were going to have people renting out the rooms. And I don't know, maybe you guys can answer this, whether multiple people having renter's insurance at your house could potentially affect your own insurance if something were to happen.
So I lived in co-living in Colorado, and each tenant had their own insurance, and then the house had their insurance, like the original owner of the house. But her insurance didn't cover us. Like if something happened, we had to pay for it. But if somebody were to come into my house and trip on the rug and bust their head, then my insurance pays for them. But if I busted my head on the floor, nobody's insurance covers me. So it's more of a liability if anything were to happen through somebody else coming in the home and they fall off the balcony, or, you know, they slip and fall. It protects you and it protects the individual tenant.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm sure about the liability issues, like what it covers and doesn't cover under that. I know as far as furnishings and things of that nature, it definitely covers that. So
yeah,
but yeah, every insurance company has different perils in their policy. You know, it's like there's one where if water comes in through the window and floods something out through a giant tidal wave, it doesn't cover it. But if the storm rips the roof off and it rains in, it covers it. So the same water, but it's like, yeah. So they write these policies different ways. Each company is different. So you really just have to dig into your perils and make sure that, you know, it doesn't cancel things if you're renting out extra rooms, like you said, or if, you know, just dig in a little bit more.
Yeah. They let us know that it would be a limit. So there, you can only rent out to 2 people and have 2 leases at a time with a homeowner insurance policy, as opposed to, I guess, like just a normal dwelling where you're not living there and it's not your primary.
Okay. And then I do know that if you jump into Steadily, so Steadily Insurance, they do a lot of insurance for short-term rentals and then different type of investment properties. So if you had a conversation with them, they may be able to tell you it's good. Not a lot of insurance companies build out insurance for the kind of things that we do as more creative investors. So we really have to seek out those right coverages. That's what I've seen.
I just received something from them that they weren't going to be renewing mine. I just sold the house, but it wasn't, so it's not a big deal. But they said it had to do something with it being a rental property, that they weren't renewing the policy. And I wasn't even renting it out. It was a fix and flip, but it was a sub-2 deal. But I don't know if they're changing something. This is like within the past week. I just got an email regarding that.
Wow.
Cool. What other renter's insurance do you guys know is a good one?
I use Liberty.
Okay.
Liberty Mutual.
State
It was
Farm
like
is
$110 for the year.
Mhm. And just another example. So I had my truck stolen from in front of my property. To say it's stolen, it wasn't really fair because I left my keys in there and I left my wallet in there and I had like $5,000 worth of tools in my truck. But it was taken from in front of my property. And when I went to make the claim, my insurance company said, my auto insurance was like, yeah, 100%, we're going to cover everything. Boom, you're good. The car was recovered and over $2,000 worth of tools were missing. So I went back to my car insurance and I said, hey, you're going to cover this, right? They said, no, your car was recovered. You're good. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, you need to go to your renter's policy. And I was like, what? And so long story short, if it was taken from your residence through a burglary, you're covered by your renter's insurance or your homeowner's insurance. In fact, I didn't have a coverage that covered me for my specific situation because I was living in a company-owned home. So one of my LLCs owns the property that I'm in. So I should have technically had renter's insurance on the house that I'm living in that I own myself, but I didn't. So I just had to eat the fact that I lost those tools.
Wow.
One more plug for why I should have had renter's insurance.
Yeah, and also the insurance would cover if there was any flood damage or anything, hotel stays and accommodations for when you can't be in the house.
Yeah, which you as a homeowner don't want to have to cover because if something goes bad, that would be you if not covered by insurance.
I love how the best lessons come from making those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing.
Have you guys had any challenges so far, like going through the rehab and getting to where you are? What was your biggest aha moment so far?
We had a few challenges up front where we wouldn't say who, but we didn't have a great experience with our lender. So that was a challenge for us, just getting the draw payment. So for example, with a 203K, there's a streamlined version and then there's a non-streamlined version. The streamlined version is under 50,000 and they force you to have a contingency. You get 50% up front to go ahead and order materials and then you get 50% at the back. So obviously working with a traditional conventional lender versus working with like a hard money, it's going to take time and it's going to take a lot more time to get your draws. So that was a challenge. I'll say during the construction process and the mitigation process, we had a really good experience comparatively to what other people say with their contractors. We had a great contractor. It took longer than expected, obviously, but still a great experience. And if you have a bad experience with a contractor, what do you say? Like, you're terrible, and then they tear your house up. So if you either have to fire them or you have to like kind of work the mold, right? You have to work with them so they don't destroy your house after you come at them. What other challenges?
First challenge right off the bat was when you do a conventional renovation loan, the traditional house buying process is you make an offer on a house and it gets accepted. And then that kicks off the usual stuff of finding an appraisal. For a conventional renovation loan, the lender can't order the appraisal until you get a contractor's fully itemized bid. So the thing is, for me, coming into this for the very first time, my offer was accepted, and then the DD period, I think we said 10 days, and the lender said, okay, cool, congratulations on getting your offer accepted. I need your fully itemized bid from a contractor in 5 days. I'm like, what? What happened there? It was like, I haven't even hired a contractor. I don't even know contractors. Why didn't anybody tell me that I have to have a fully itemized bid in days? So yeah, that was a little kind of tricky point there. So first thing I would say is anybody who's looking to do a conventional renovation loan, well, one thing is it's so rarely used that probably very few people understand all of the inner workings of how it works. So first thing I would say, if you're going to use it, it's a great product, but big tip, make sure you do a 45-day close. Don't do a 30-day close, do a 45-day close. That'll make a world of difference because then you actually have time to walk through the property with one contractor or multiple contractors, give them time to create a bid, itemized bid, and then you compare and contrast. Then you submit it to the lender, they order the appraisal, and then you're good to go. But we had to get 2 extensions because of some trickery there with that. So that's definitely some major learning right off the bat.
What about with the house that you guys found? Is there anything different that you would look for in your next property versus this one?
Yeah, for sure. I think this house worked well because the 2 areas that we're going to rent are on the left side and the right side. So that worked out pretty well. I think one of the biggest learnings that we've had so far is that we thought if we have a private entrance and a private bathroom for both people and kind of have a very nice place, then people will be willing to pay more, say $1,200, $1,250 a month. And it seems like that is not necessarily the case. Most of the people who have that much money to pay are probably going to go stretch a little bit more and then get an apartment or something like that. So trying to aim for too high quality may screw you a little bit. So in the future, I think a better option is instead of aiming for high quality, maximum comfort, privacy, aim for as many bedrooms as you possibly can. So 6, 7, 8, 9 bedrooms, it's probably going to be a lot better. And then you rent those out for $700 to $800 instead of trying to do one person for $1,200. It's probably better to do 2 people for $1,400. That's probably way better. So
Yeah. So like for my house, we originally thought, well, let's just do like 3 units. 3, they'll have their own entrance, they'll have their own bathroom, and everything will be separate. It'll kind of be like a triplex, but not really. They'll have a shared kitchen, right? And we've realized through this process that anybody who really is looking for shared housing, they just want to pay that like $800 for a room, right? They're not looking for the super fancy things. So we're like, let's just do 5 bedrooms and we'll get more money out of that anyway. And that's what people are looking for with shared housing.
Yeah.
So definitely more bedrooms, and don't assume that making it fancier with private entrances and private bathrooms is going to get you more income, right? Because that may not be the case.
I mean, you might, but you're looking for the 1%. So it's tricky.
So in those bathrooms, did you have a full bath or is it a half bath?
It's a full bath. We've learned from other people that half baths in co-living or house hacking are just kind of useless. I don't know if that's true or not because we don't have a half bath in this house, and we're getting into it. But they just said if you have a half bath, you might as well do whatever you can to try to turn that into a full bath because that's where your money is going to be, right?
Is it showers or tubs?
They are showers. We learned from Dave Edwards with NACO, from the NACO group, that if you have a tub, people are going to use it and they're going to fill it up and they're going to put a bunch of water down the drain. So he suggested only doing showers. So that's what we opted to do.
Yeah. And again, he's the guy in Houston who has 50, 60 rooms, something like that. So he's gotten a lot of experience just like small things like that, like don't do tubs so people don't sit there and take baths and waste water. The light fixtures above your vanities, you don't want to be changing light bulbs. Get an LED bar instead, so you never have to change light bulbs. Small things like that. He's got choices on electronic door locks and stuff like that. He's got a lot of good things like that. But
so who are the top people you're kind of following in the co-living or house hacking space right now? And you had mentioned a book earlier, and I wanted to, I didn't write it down, but I wanted to get the name of that book again.
Oh yeah, that's this one right here, The House Hacking Strategy. We're not affiliated with it or anything like that, but it is a Bigger Pockets book. It's pretty good. I kind of wish that I had started reading it beforehand, before this whole journey, because he has some tips. I started reading it like halfway through the renovation. And, he has a lot of good insight to what he says. One of the things that sticks out in my mind was he said the way he chooses a contractor sometimes is he says, hey, how long do you think this is going to take? 2 months? Okay, fine. If you say it's going to take 2 months, for every day that it is early, I'll give you $100 per day. And then for every day that's late, $100 penalty. And that incentivizes the contractors to finish fast. Also, another thing is he says always ask for warranty on all the contractor work. I didn't do that because I didn't know to do that when we started, but that's small tips like that could have really helped.
Yeah.
All right. And you guys are also following some of Sam Wiegard's stuff as well. I'm actually a student of his and in his program. So yeah, he's got a lot of good information, a lot of good stuff as well. I haven't heard of Dave before, so I'll have to check him out.
We actually started just joining groups, Facebook groups that were full of people doing co-living, and we found one that was called NACO, National Association of Co-Living Operators, I think is what that is. So we just started joining the Zoom calls and sometimes even hosting the Zoom calls, and we just started seeing tons of people who are already doing it. They might be in Florida, they might be using pad split, they might not. So we were really able to learn a lot from the people who are already doing it, even if it's not in the same market.
It was kind of funny because we joined this random Facebook group, and we got on one of those calls. We started talking to this gentleman, Dave Edwards from Houston, and it was, I think that was a few months ago, and a few days ago we noticed it was like, oh hey, he's on Sam's podcast. So if you ever look up Sam's podcast, I think Dave Edwards was on last week or something like that. So it was kind of funny. He's like, hey, we talked to him before.
He gives a lot of good tips, like for the automatic outlet shutoffs in like the laundry room, for example. So after a certain time, you can't even use the laundry
At night.
At night, so it keeps it quiet and keeps those quiet hours under wraps. So we've just been picking up tips everywhere we're going for this.
I think to be successful with this, one of the things is you have to research like crazy and everywhere, because everybody has different things that they do to be successful. People have different house rules. People have different house layouts or different houses they go for, different sizes. So like, it's good to just know what everybody is doing, because, and then you'll probably have your own flavor over time as well. Flavor, yes, your own flavor. That's good, like ramen.
Well, awesome. Does anybody have anything else, or do you guys have any closing thoughts?
I think that this is something. So I've been investing in the stock market since graduating college for a long time, and the reason I started on this journey was partly, but mostly because of Paris. She's in the real estate space, and she introduced me to all this stuff. But my money in my 401k and Roth IRA and stuff like that is sitting there and it's growing. But after a while, I was like, well, what good does that do me today? I'm gonna have a very nice retirement, but today that doesn't do anything for me. And so we started researching this, and shout out to Scott Stamps. He was definitely the one that kind of blew my mind, because he has, I think, 8 houses or something like that he does. 8 houses, all by rent by the room. And I was like, oh, that's kind of smart. You can achieve financial independence today. And that's kind of the cool thing, is they say almost everybody can do 2 to 3 houses and probably achieve financial independence based on your lifestyle, of course. But that should be enough cash flow. And this is something I wish I had started when I graduated instead of waiting till now. Because allowing yourself to live cheaply, maybe for free, maybe even making a little bit of profit, and then over time, 10, 15 years go by, and you have a few houses going, and your houses have only appreciated. So I wish I had started this a long time ago. So if anybody else is on the fence, try to do this for sure.
Have you looked into converting your 401k or anything into a self-directed and using that for?
I had that in the back of my mind when we were trying to go through the lending process. We needed some extra money just in case to do some additional repairs or contingency and stuff like that, but never ended up needing it, thankfully. I might do that in the future. I wasn't ready to convert that just yet, but depending on how this goes, then maybe next year.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know what I love most about all this?
I think this is a great option for being able to do that long-term play. And the objection we hear every time is, but I want my privacy. And we totally get that. You can do co-living. You don't have to live in the house with them, right? You can just do co-living and rent out all the rooms and manage it from afar or pay somebody to manage it. We've actually learned that in certain areas where pad split already exists, people feel like it's oversaturated because there's somebody there managing it. So we're actually really excited to be in a market where pad split isn't, so that we can make the most of it while they're not here, if they ever do come here, and we can take hold of the market with a few other people who are doing it here, right?
Yeah, I'll say this is something that not only I wish I had done before, because I could see the ability to leave cheaply, free, or even at a profit. But everybody has the capability to do this, especially if you use a 203K or a conventional renovation loan. Then you can build the house how you want it with the privacy you want it. And even if you don't want to live with anybody, well, then you can build an ADU in the backyard or something like that. Or here's the other kicker is if you don't want to live with anybody, you have a family, you want privacy, you want comfort, so on and so forth. This is what some people call like advanced house hacking. Is that you set up your house for co-living, and then you live there for a year, and then you move out, and then you rent it. So then you never need to live with anybody ever, but you still have that co-living setup after you leave. So if there's any doubt in anybody's mind, I would just say there is a way to do it that everybody can get into this, and you definitely should because it's such a great way to achieve financial independence. You create your own financial freedom, and that is incredibly powerful.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys are getting hands-on experience and you'll probably work out a really good system being involved in it versus just trying to manage it from abroad too. I think when we spoke last weekend, that was kind of like one of your key points of what you wanted to do. You wanted to like get a feeling for what the tenants actually feel like and learning how to create that camaraderie within the community.
Yeah. And we could easily put our money in syndications. Like that would be the easy route, right? But then we're not learning anything. So we really want to be hands-on and try to understand this process and get better at it and not just passively like put our money in a syndication.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing too, is like if you do this once, maybe you make some money, maybe you don't, maybe some bad things happen. But if you try it again, then you get even better. Then you get even better. And by the third, fourth, fifth house, maybe even stepping into multifamily, even apartments or something like that, then you just take that learning and it just builds on itself. And who knows what the path is from there. It's very powerful.
So do you guys have a number in mind of how many rooms you want in the next, say, like 12 to 5-year plan? Like, do you have those goals like that yet?
In the next 5 years, so this is my first house that I bought. Harris already has a house. And I envision that probably in the next few years, we'll both buy another one. So it would be nice in 3 years if we both had two houses going, whether that's probably 10, 20 rooms, something like that. That's a good start. And then unsure if we'll keep going with houses or maybe then step into multifamily after that. So it depends on how it is.
Nice. All right. Well, does anybody have anything else, or are we coming to the end here?
Just want to thank Paul and Harris for having us out, letting us see the house, and then doing the follow-up. Thanks so much.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing how you guys progress in this. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. I'm sure we'll have some tenant stories for sure.
We'll have to get back on sometime, definitely.
Cool.
Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
All
us.
right. Thank you so much.
Have a great night, guys.
Bye. Is that it?
All right.
That was good.